So, and today we're going to be going over some of 2022's Black Friday deals. These are just some deals that kind of stuck out that look like are a good bargain or just a great deal and just look promising. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first off we have this beautiful miter saw from Ryobi. Now this is a battery operated 10-inch miter saw that comes with a 4 amp hour battery at $269, which is already a very good price for a battery operated miter saw that's in the 10-inch range. But if you so choose to, you can add a miter saw stand to the cart in the section on the website, and you'll be able to get that miter saw stand with the saw and battery for the same price of $269. Overall, this is a fantastic deal, and this is definitely my #1 pick for best deal of 2020 when it comes to tools. But with that being said, let's move on. Okay, next up we have this aluminum ladder. This is a 5-foot aluminum ladder that is a lightweight or light duty ladder, and overall it does a fairly good job considering the price point. Overall, ladders are definitely one of those tools that you always need to have on hand just for safety reasons, and this is an excellent choice unless you're doing electrical work. Overall, this is a great value for a decent ladder, and quite frankly, it comes recommended. So yeah, moving on. And if that ladder is just too much for you, this little step ladder for 20 bucks is also a really good deal for the money. Now, I didn't end up buying this particular one because I bought the ladder in the last segment, so I didn't really need this particular one. But I still think 20 bucks is a good deal for a step ladder. If you look at the prices of step ladders, they're usually in the $40 to $60 range for a 3-step ladder. So overall, this is definitely a good deal and something that is worth having on hand for a multitude of reasons. But with that being said, let's move on. Next up, we have this 6-piece Ryobi toolkit. Overall, this particular toolkit is, well, it's a fairly basic toolkit. It'll give you basically every basic tool that you'll need around the house, and it's definitely a beginner or entry-level tool set. But with that being said, these tools seem to be holding up fairly well. Yes, I did buy it already, even though I have nicer tools, and I don't have any major complaints about most of the tools in this set. So quite frankly, this is a great option if you don't own any power tools and you just want some basic tools for the odd job around the house. So this is definitely a worthwhile deal to mention, considering that it is $100 off of what their normal suggested retail price is for half the year. The other half of the year, this is the normal price. But with that being said, let's move on. Okay, let's say you already own some fairly nice Ryobi tools. This actually is a fairly good price for some HP 4 amp hour batteries for your nicer Ryobi tools. Overall, this will definitely help for your HP lineup of Ryobi tools, and this will definitely give you better performance when you're working with saws from Ryobi. So quite frankly, if you do have some battery operated saws that are Ryobi branded, this is a good option to go with. Just remember that, well, it's still a 4 amp hour battery, and don't believe all the marketing hype around this sort of a product. It will give you better performance, but it's not going to be 4 times the performance like they always claim. So with that being said, let's move on. If you're looking at buying something a little bit higher quality than your typical Ryobi product, this particular kit from Makita actually is a fairly good value. Now, it is $100 more expensive than the kit that I showed you previously, and the tools are slightly different, but overall, this will give you pretty much everything that you will need around the house for your basic everyday project. You'll get a circular saw, a reciprocating saw, and an impact driver, which is a must in this day and age, and a drill, kind of a crappy little light, and a handheld vacuum, which actually does a fairly decent job. So overall, I'd consider that $300 for this particular kit is a good deal. And the bag is also worlds better than the bag that comes with the Ryobi kit. I'm just saying that the bag actually is a quality bag with this particular kit. Now with that being said, let's move on. Okay, now moving over to Harbor Freight, we have the security bit set. Normally it is at about $10 in price. There's $2 off the price, which isn't that big of a deal, but this is one of those items that most people don't have on hand that, well, when they need something like this, they really need it, and you can't really do anything without. Having a security bit set means that you'll be able to open up certain items around your house that you typically wouldn't be able to open up with the bits that you'd find at your local store or in that drawer in your kitchen. So quite frankly, this is a tool that I think most people should have on hand, and this is a tool that I am going to be buying very soon because I need to get new security bits because my old security bits have gotten a little bit beat up. So this is an excellent deal for $8, and this is something I would recommend. Next up, we have this magnetic tray. This is another one of those tools that is very handy, and you won't really know you need it until you actually, well, start using it. This is very handy for when you disassemble something and you want to keep all the screws in one particular place, especially if you can't finish that project right away. So quite frankly, this is another item that I would highly recommend picking up. And next up, we have a 25-foot extension cord for $8. Now, this might not sound like that big of a deal, but if you've looked at extension cords any time in the last year, you've noticed that they've sort of gone up in price because of inflation. So finding a 25-foot extension cord for $8 actually is a fairly good deal. So this is another thing that I would recommend taking a look at if you ever use extension cords, which is most people. Now, with that being said, let's move on. Next up, we have this pole saw. Now, I've never used this pole saw, and I don't have much of a need for a pole saw, but considering the price of a Ryobi pole saw, this seems to be a fairly decent price for a pole saw. So if you're in the market for a pole saw, this might be one to, well, take a look at. Just remember that you will still need to buy a battery in order to use this particular pole saw, and a charger, obviously. But with that being said, let's move on. And next up, we have Harbor Freight's famous $10 grinder. Yes, it's back at the $10 price point. And, well, if you need a backup grinder or a spare grinder or just another grinder to throw a different kind of grinding wheel on, this isn't a horrible way to go. It's not the best way to go, but it's not the worst way to go either. So this is a decent option to take a look at if you are in the need of a, well, cheap grinder or a backup grinder. Just remember that this should not be your primary grinder unless you almost do no grinding work. So with that being said, let's move on. Next up, we have a 13-piece impact socket set. Now, if you're using those shiny sockets on your electric or air-powered impact wrench, you're probably going to regret that decision in the near future. They're not designed for that particular need, and it actually can be dangerous because it can send shrapnel flying when the socket breaks. So you should probably go ahead and pick up this socket set just for your own personal well-being, and to just make sure you're doing the job right, and to support your local Harbor Freight, because let's face it, they need all the help they can get. Moving on. Okay, moving over to Old Wally World, aka Walmart's website, we have a 2-gallon Hart air compressor, which is battery operated. Now, this particular tool only runs at $169 most of the year, but right now is running at $115, which I think seems to be a fairly good deal. And so if you're in the need for a battery operated air compressor and you already have some Hart batteries, this might be worth taking a look at. With that being said, let's move on. And next up, we have a Hart 40-volt blower with a battery included. So overall, that actually seems to be a fairly good price for $104. Normally, this particular blower retails for about $159, so that's giving you roughly about a $55 discount plus tax, which is a fairly decent discount for a battery-powered blower. So at the end of the day, if you need a blower, this is a decent option to consider. Okay, next up we have a 20-volt vacuum cleaner from Hart. Now, this particular vacuum cleaner will come with a 4-amp-hour battery, and considering the price point is $100, this seems to be a fairly good deal for a battery-operated vacuum cleaner. If you've ever done any research into battery-operated vacuum cleaners, you'll notice that the price tag very rarely goes beneath the $150 mark for any battery-operated vacuum cleaner from a notable manufacturer such as TTI, who actually is the company that makes these particular tools for Walmart, the Hart brand. So at the end of the day, this does seem to be a fairly decent tool for the price. I'm not sure about the runtime or the overall performance, but it might be worth giving it a try simply because of the price point. And last but not least, we have this impact bit set. Now, this particular bit set is actually a tool I have purchased twice now at this point, and I have to say I'm fairly happy with the overall performance of these particular bits. This is not going to give you the same level of quality as, say, a bit set from Milwaukee or Bosch, but you aren't paying those particular prices, and quite frankly, this actually does give you a lot of options, and it's going to give you pretty much any standard head that you'll need around the house. So at the end of the day, this is a good quality set for a good quality price. Also, never buy any Ryobi set that is similar to this. I know Hart and Ryobi are sort of viewed as the same, just with different batteries, but these particular bits are way better than any Ryobi branded bits that I've ever used. Ryobi branded bits are crap. Even if Ryobi tools are fairly good, their bits are crap. Let me say that again, one more time. Ryobi bits are crap. Okay, with that being said, moving on. Okay, over at Amazon, we have this skil 6-piece tool set for $200. Now, I personally am one of those people that always want to try skil, but never actually end up buying any of their tools simply because, well, the way they lay out their tool sets that they sell is kind of stupid in my opinion. I mean, why are you selling a tool set that doesn't have an impact driver in it? Or a circular saw? I don't really need a multi-tool for everyday purposes, and I don't really need a sander for everyday purposes, so I'd rather replace those two tools with a circular saw and an impact driver. But with that being said, this particular tool set seems to be a fairly good value for $200, so if you are interested in picking up some skil tools, this might be an interesting set to take a look at, considering that they're brushless. With that being said, let's move on. Okay, next up we have some solar motion security lights. Overall, these particular lights is something that I personally purchased and do use, and I have to say these have probably been the most reliable security lights that I have purchased. Most of the time when I purchase a set like this, one of the lights will burn out within the first couple of months, but all the lights in this particular set are still working, and they are very bright and they're very effective, and I haven't had any complaints. They've worked out in the snow, and they've worked down to about 2 degrees outside, so quite frankly I'm perfectly happy with this particular set, and it does come recommended. Just remember to click that 40% off coupon directly below the price if you do end up purchasing these particular lights. Okay, this is another one of those tools that's kind of unique that I do intend on buying, and I've intended on buying it for over a year now at this point. But this particular tool is down about $4 in price, at least what it usually is on Amazon, and I think this is a fairly decent price considering what this tool can do. This is a 2-in-1 reciprocating saw / jigsaw, and while it might not be the most macho reciprocating saw, at least it gives you the option in between the two. So if you have limited space and you need both a jigsaw and a reciprocating saw, this might be a worthwhile option to take a look at. I just probably would not use this for cutting metal if I was to purchase this, which I will eventually. I will review it, I promise. Someday. Okay, with that being said, let's move on. And next up, we have a third-party branded light. Well, it's a light made by a third party that uses Makita batteries. I don't actually own this particular tool. I own something similar to this, and the thing I own that's similar to this works well, but at the end of the day, this is another one of those tools that could be very handy in an emergency situation, and might be worth taking a look at, especially if you own any Makita batteries. Now, this is a tool that is similar to the last tool that I do own, except I own the Makita version. Now, this is a really good price, and I think this is sort of on clearance because most of these have been marked down to the $4 or $5 range or $6 range, and quite frankly, for that price, it is worth picking one of these up. Now, I have heard that the bulb is not replaceable, even though you can unscrew it. No other bulbs that you put in the socket will work, so that might be why they're trying to get rid of them. But it is an interesting option to take a look at, and you can find them for the following Makita, DeWalt, or Milwaukee systems. So this might be worth taking a look at if you're in the need of something like this. I can't promise how long these will remain in stock for, since they're sort of on clearance for most of the people that sell them, but if you look around hard enough, you'll probably be able to find one at a reasonable price, and they do work quite well. So at the end of the day, this is an interesting tool to consider. This is another tool that is somewhat interesting to me simply because, well, it gives you the ability to use your regular power tool batteries as a USB power bank. And it's an interesting concept, especially with the ability to mount one of these on your belt. I haven't used one of these personally, and the reviews are sort of mixed, but this is something I am planning on taking a look at eventually. I'm just not sure when that will happen. It could happen later today, it could happen an hour from now, I have no idea. But this is something to keep in mind, considering that you can get 2 of these for about $13 in price. Another light that is made by a third-party manufacturer for a Makita battery is this particular Goose light. Now, you can find this particular style of light for also the DeWalt and Milwaukee batteries, but I did not link to them, so you'll have to find them on your own. This particular light seems to be made out of a fairly decent material. The overall build quality seems to be decent, and there really is nothing major to complain about, well, except for maybe the fact that the button style is a hold to turn off style button, and the fact that the lamp bead, the light output, is a little bit too warm for my particular likes. But with that being said, it's still a useful light for a variety of different situations, and it would still come recommended. Now I would go fight over the last couple that are in stock. Here are also a couple other lights that will use a Makita battery that are not made by Makita, but use the Makita battery, like I just said. It's a little bit confusing, but you get the point. Overall, I'm not sure about the overall performance of these lights, but they also look interesting, and they seem rather affordable considering that they were costing in the $30 to $40 range before this week, and so that might be something that is worth taking a look at. Just remember that if you do end up purchasing these particular lights, you do so at your own risk, and there's always a chance that a third-party tool will damage your official Makita battery, so always be careful if you do intend on purchasing these particular tools. Also, there's a couple other versions for DeWalt, Makita, Milwaukee, Ryobi. You'll just have to look around to see what you can find, but overall the price tag seems fairly affordable, like I said earlier, because they were much more expensive. So I don't know if that's just because it's a bad quality tool, or if they're just trying to get rid of them because they have a new shipment of different branded stuff coming in. So this might be the time to pick up a good light for your power tool batteries if you look around hard enough over on Amazon. Okay, next up we have a fairly familiar looking electric screwdriver. Now, when I reviewed this tool last year, it was under a different name, and there were a couple of reasons why I ultimately ended up returning it. Number one reason, the cutting head attachment, which was one of the reasons why I ended up buying it originally, was garbage. The other reason why I ended up returning it was because of the price. It was costing about $43 roughly, and that was just too much money for this particular tool, and I just didn't think it was all that great of a value. But if you can pick it up for around 20 bucks, I think that actually is a very good value, considering that it gives you a couple of heads, which can be very useful in a variety of different situations for assembling or disassembling something. It'll give you an offset head and a right angle head, as well as a clutch for disassembling or assembling tools. So at the end of the day, this is a decent tool to consider if you are in the need of an electric screwdriver and to have a couple of tight spaces you need access to. I just wouldn't pay over $25 for it, but if it's under $25, it might be worth taking a look at because of the different attachments that it comes with. And last but not least, we have Tool Direct's website. They are currently offering a 25% off site-wide discount, as well as an extra 10% off on their factory reconditioned tools. So this is a fairly decent way to go if you're looking at buying some Ryobi or rigid tools. Just remember, you still are going to have to pay that $14 shipping fee, since there is no free shipping over there. And with that being said, this is it for this particular video. I just wanted to do a quick video highlighting some of the deals and, well, just the things that kind of stood out to me for this holiday season of buying. So with that being said, let's go ahead and end this video, and we will see you next time. God bless.